that my world felt opened up creatively. There was a point where I got to as a writer who only wrote very diaristic songs that I felt it was unsustainable from my future moving forward. It felt like too hot of a microscope. It felt a bit like I was like, why am I just like, if I'm writing about my life and all it is, on my bad days, I would feel like I was loading a cannon of clickbait when that's not what I want for my life. And I think that when I put out Folklore, I felt like if I can do this thing where I get to create characters in this mythological American town or wherever I imagine them, and I can reflect my own emotions onto what I think they might be feeling, and I can create stories and characters and arcs and all this stuff, but I don't have to have it feel like when I put out an album, I'm just like giving tabloids ammunition and stuff.
Yeah, there's so much judgment that would come along with every record.
Yeah, and constantly kind of like examining yourself in a way that feels like I felt like there would be a point in my life where I could no longer really do that and still maintain a place of like good mental health and emotional health and all that. So what I felt after we put out Folklore was like, oh wow, people are into this too. This thing that feels really good for my life and feels really good for my creativity. It feels really good for them too. Oh my God. I saw a lane for my future that it was a real breakthrough moment of excitement and happiness. And I kind of referred to writing these songs as a flotation device because obviously this year is hell on earth for everyone. And seeing what your fellow humans are going through, the Long Pond studio sessions was the first time that Jack, Aaron, and I were in the same room. And I still haven't been in the same room with Justin Vernon, who has now collaborated on 2 albums heavily, and we've talked, but we've just never been in the same space together. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, how was that experience when you first caught up together and saw each other having made this amazing body of work? Because we saw it on camera. There was this giddiness and this idea of like, wow, we did it, we made it. Now we can celebrate it and make it real to some degree. But what was going on behind the camera? That's what I think we all want to know, is when you all first saw each other before the cameras rolled, what was happening then? Because that's a truly human experience that I don't think you or anyone has ever been through before, where the stakes were so high for remote recording, and then you all come together and it's like, wow, how do we even translate this?
It was such a strange thing because we'd been on, group chats, and it wasn't ever the combination yet. So the combination of the 3 of us was like this strange feeling of, I remember I walked into the studio, they were already rehearsing, and I walked in and it was just like they were a band. It wasn't that feeling of awkwardness between them because I guess they'd had their moment. I walked in and I heard them playing August or something, and I was just sitting there thinking, this is exactly how I would have wanted it. I would have wanted this, reunion or union at all to happen in a moment of me walking in on them creating music and rehearsing and playing instruments. And I just started rehearsing too, and it was such a vibe. And it couldn't really have been, I couldn't have asked for more under the circumstances. It's so fun to make a record when you've got people in the room and you've got that energy that's bouncing off the walls. But if you can't do that, this was a pretty close second.
Yeah, I mean, no one's been able to do that. Very rarely have people been able to get into a room and get that tactility and that chemistry that we all, I guess, to some degree became so accustomed to. And, I think about this year, you talked about it and you put it in the perfect framework. But it's also taught us a lot about stillness and what it is to be still and what it is to reflect and to be comfortable in our own skin. And I think human beings by nature search for coping mechanisms and distractions to avoid that. And in your case, I've always felt that you've moved so fast. And even if you've taken some time between projects, it's clear you're working on things all the time. What has this process of working on Folklore and Evermore, busy year for you as a songwriter, but also has it taught you something about stillness, and has it altered your attitude toward pace and productivity and what motivates you?
Yes, it has changed everything about the way that I do what I do. It gave me a perspective of, I was pretty upset when my shows all got canceled and I realized I wasn't going to be able to connect with my fans in the way that I'm traditionally used to. just a normal human interaction I couldn't do anymore, you know?
Especially after an album like Lover, which is just like such a communal, joyous experience. I can imagine it's like, wow, I'm going to get to bring this to life, you know?
Yeah, and I think we all felt that way. I think the fans felt that way too, where we were just sitting there going, wow, I think that would have been fun. But what it did was, you know, when you plan a live show, I guess at least when I do it, I'm writing interstitial music. I'm planning, this set piece goes off while this goes on, while we distract them over here, and this song calls for this and this song calls for that, and that's all creating. And I don't think I really assigned very much merit to the fact that that is creating when you're taking music you've already made and an album that you've already made, and you're choreographing and you're setting up a live spectacle that is taking up so much emotional, creative, and imagination-based bandwidth in your brain. So if you take all of that away, what happens? And I guess I learned that it's very possible for me to write more music with that creative bandwidth. As musicians, we're so used to immediately touring, immediately putting together the show, immediately going into rehearsals. And then we always feel that we need a pretty big break, or at least a significant gap of time where we get to rest afterward. And I guess I learned that when we're on the road, it's not just that we're sweating and we're meeting a million people and we have all this back and forth of just energy of meeting this person, trying to get a surprise guest to surprise the crowd, and all this stuff that happens on tour. It's also the creation of the show itself that is taking up a lot of your brain space. So without that, this just happened naturally on its own.
Is there a dysfunction to that? Do you think, looking back on it now, is there a correlation between some of the kind of more hard to manage parts of your life and the pace at which things go, and how careers become these kind of entities unto themselves?
Yes and no. I think that looking back on my career, there have been so many different musical phases and, you know, different things I wanted to wear at different times, and they fit my life at the time. And so I think that you've got to allow yourself that grace to put on a certain lifestyle or a certain outfit or a certain creative mantra, and then discard it when you outgrow it. This was weird though, because this Evermore was the first time I didn't discard everything after I made something new, you know? It was weird. I actually had to kind of fight off anxiety that I had in my head, like fear that was like, you need to change. like the demons are here, like, you need to change. You can't stay in the forest. I was like, I want to stay in the forest.
But the forest is such a weird place, because when you were a kid, and I think aesthetically that's a big part, a significant part of what's made this so immersive, this experience, is that idea of stepping into the unknown. And when you're a kid, like, this idea of wide open water is really scary, not knowing what's underneath. Being out in a forest and looking directly into trees that could go on forever, you know, is kind of an intimidating type of image. And yet you made it feel like something that was intimate, like you wanted to go into that. How did that kind of relate to the music? Because it's such an essential part of these two albums, the way that it looks and feels.
I think that working with Aaron, the music that we were making, he was writing instrumentals and I was writing the melodies and the lyrics. And what ended up happening was, I think we just gravitated towards what both of us simultaneously felt made us feel cozy, which was nature. You know, so many people during the pandemic just were going on hikes and trying to get outside because nature symbolized this strange comfort all of a sudden, where everything was completely off kilter and nobody could really figure out how to get their bearings. And so we all went outside, or we all tried to go camping, or tried to go hiking, or go on drives. And I think that Aaron's music and my music both reflected sort of that feel, with Aaron such an amazing instrumentalist, and his instrumentals that he was writing were all very kind of dreamscapes. And so it's not that this album is all about like the forest and the woods and stuff. It's got hints of that. And there's a lot of kind of the lyric. One thing I wanted to do with Folklore is I wanted it to represent spring and summer. And when I made Evermore, I knew that I wanted to fill in the rest of the seasons of the year and have it reflect fall and winter. So that's another element that nature came into it. But also it was the easiest way that we could do a photo shoot. You know, I haven't had a haircut by anyone except for myself since lockdown started. And that's kind of how it's been, you know, like how can I make art and make visuals that go with this art where I can't ask my hair and makeup people and my stylist to quarantine for 2 weeks away from their families. I'm not going to ask them to do that, like, and ask them to fly and expose themselves to the virus. So how can I possibly make a cover on my own? Could I just sort of DIY this? So I asked, I asked my friends if I could use their field and their woods, and I used a photographer who works alone. She doesn't have assistants. She shoots on film. So we were carrying bags of film out into fields, and I'd be like, touching up my lipstick, and then I'd run out into a field and she'd take pictures. It was really fun. Honestly.
I was going to say, it must have been really amazing as a songwriter too. I was thinking about these two albums in relation to your career and how, in a weird way, and I don't mean this in any relation to in any negative reaction to your previous albums, because you know how I feel, but the process itself of writing songs from a very pure place with no plans. Because you make your debut album with nothing but ambition. That's a plan. That's a big plan. And then from there, the plans start to increase and get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And to your point, you're looking for the next plan. I just don't feel like there were any plans here. Did it feel like you could get to a pure place this year without all those plans?
Yes, it did. Pure is a really, really perfect word for that. Because what happens to you as your career builds and builds and builds and builds is that if you've accomplished a thing in the past, all of a sudden you're expected to accomplish that thing plus another new thing plus this other thing over here. It becomes sort of like, I had felt at times when I felt a lot of pressure, I felt like I was doing some sort of like obstacle course. And that's not how you should feel when you're creating. You shouldn't feel like I need to make a track list where this one's for the stadium show, this one's for radio, this one's for people who want to get in their feelings. Check. And you can end up doing that. And it's good to have friends who are artists who have similar pressures. Like Ed Sheeran and I talk about this a great deal. This was a time when we both stepped back, and I would say to him, this is the first time I felt like I threw the checklist away. Like I threw it away, and I definitely could have gone into the pandemic thinking I've got to wait for everything to open up so I can do things exactly the way that I'm used to doing them. But then about 3 days in, I thought, wait, this could be an opportunity for me to do things in a way I haven't ever done them before. What would my work sound like if I took away all of my fear-based checklisting that I have inflicted on myself?
Wow.
So I guess
huge.
You know the answer now. Yeah.
To me, there's an interesting correlation here between these two albums and this idea of getting into a pure space, the freedom and the space being another key word to this, and the idea of going back and re-recording your music. Do you see a correlation between reflecting the person you've been and becoming the person you wanted, that you are and are going to be?
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there. But it does resonate with me a lot because I was allowed to start re-recording my music in November. By then we had a great deal of Evermore done. I had shot a music video for Willow, but I was still writing and I was still recording. So there would be days where I'd be recording You Belong With Me, and then I'd be recording a song like Happiness, which is on Evermore. And
wow.
It made me feel really proud of sort of the scope of things. And looking back when I was a teenager and I would write about, my troubles in high school and the drama and the pining away and all that stuff, that was all so valid to me at that time in my life. Just as much as Evermore is so valid to my happiness at this time in my life. So it's been I've really felt very grateful lately for people giving me the ability to grow up creatively. And I know there have been snags and there have been times where people have been like, I don't like her, several times. But for the most part, I feel a great amount of gratitude that I was able to make music from the time I was a teenager to the time that I'm 31.
And normally, you put those songs out and then you have to let them go. And even when you perform them in front of people, I often feel like they belong more to the fans and to the audience sometimes than they even do to the artists, And getting a chance to re-record them for whatever reason, whatever prompted this thing, the fact that you get to go and listen to these and re-record them, I wonder if it brings you closer to them and changes your feelings towards songs that often people just record and move on from. Don't even listen to again as artists unless they're playing them.
Yes, it does. It makes me feel really close to those songs again. And it also reminds me that obviously I want to keep a lot of cool surprises for the fans until I'm ready to show them fully to everyone. But the reason that I feel so passionately that artists should own their catalogs is because if you are the creator of all of this music, you're the only one who actually knows the ins and the outs of it. You're the only one who knows what almost was written. You're the only one who knows the kind of secrets of the journey of making this music. So you're actually the only one who has the ability to share it with the fans in the way that can make everyone the happiest and the most excited. So it's been really fulfilling in a way that I had no idea what to expect. You don't want to feel like it's your homework got destroyed and so now you have to redo your homework. It's not like that at all.
Yeah.
It's not like that at all.
You've got to go into it like this is an opportunity. And also, you talked about artists owning their catalog, and I've been talking to artists for most of my life. And there's one thing that continues to crop up, and I think that, your perspective would be really, really interesting here, which is why do you think that as artists we put security and stability before artistic control and freedom as young artists?
We don't make that conscious decision. We aren't given the information oftentimes, and that's why I'm having lots of conversations behind the scenes with record labels and trying to help them understand this from a psychological perspective, what you do to an artist when you separate them from their work. You break something, and I'm trying to figure out how to put that thing back together in a way that heals what was broken by a system that is not designed for artists to have a chance at, that's an artist's pension plan. That's their retirement. That's their legacy. That's what they want to leave to their children.
And how could you ever know? How could you ever know the life you're going to live? How could you ever know what's going to happen, right? A coming of age is come and gone, right? How could you ever know that?
Yeah, good quote. But yeah, I was 15, 14 when I was in record deal negotiations. So you can't really go back and say, wow, what a conscious choice that was made. You don't know the music industry until you know it. And because I have learned what I've learned, I really just want to make things better for other people. And I want that to start at the record deal in the contract. Artists should never have to part with their work. They should own it from day one, but they should license it back to the label so that the label can make back their money over a certain amount of time. And that amount of time should be what's negotiated upon. It should not be a question moving forward. And if I can do anything to change that for a young artist in the future, or many or all of them, then that's, I'm going to keep being loud about it.
It's an incredible observation at a brilliant age to come to that. And at the time of recording, your birthday's in a couple of days. By the time this is seen, it's probably about 24 hours ago. To protect myself from the Swifties, I got to say happy birthday, even though you haven't had your birthday. It's all very DeLorean kind of nightmare for me right now. I'm in some Back to the Future vortex. But anyway, happy birthday.
Thank you.
I wanted to talk about this album and the word I mentioned at the beginning, closure, is something that keeps coming up on Evermore for me as a listener and a fan of your music. But it's got to start somewhere. The album and the journey has to start somewhere. And it starts with Willow. And it's, I don't often ask this question. I wish I did. Why is that the first song on the album? And you're the artist to ask it to, Taylor, because it's definitely a reason.
I liked opening the album with that because I loved the feeling that I got immediately upon hearing the instrumental that Aaron created for it. It felt strangely, I say witchy, and I stand by that. It felt like somebody standing over a potion, making a love potion, dreaming up the person that they want and the person they desire and trying to figure out how to get that person in their life. And all the kind of misdirection and bait and switch and complexity that goes into seeing someone, feeling a connection, wanting them, and trying to make them a part of your life. It's tactical at times. It's confusing at times.
Totally.
It's up to fate. It's magical.
It's called manifestation. That's how human beings actually make sense of it. We're manifesting, but it's something else. It's something else.
Yeah.
It's a whole combination of all of it.
Yeah, it felt a bit magical and mysterious, which is what I wanted people to feel going into an album that was a collection of these stories. That we're going to take them in all kinds of directions. So I wanted to start them with sort of a setting of the vibe. But what you say about closure is really, really profound, because with folklore, one of the main themes throughout that was conflict resolution, right? Like trying to figure out how to get through something with someone, or making confessions, or trying to tell them something, trying to communicate with them. Evermore deals a lot in endings of all sorts, shapes and sizes, all the kinds of ways we can end a relationship, a friendship, something toxic, and the pain that goes along with that, the phases of it. So it's cool that you noticed that.
I mean, it opens up so many possibilities for you as a writer once, you get to a point where you feel you don't have to stick to that linear narrative. And it's a very brilliant narrative, but the idea of like, I love you, we fell out, we broke up, there's pain, there's joy. When you start to look at all the other open endings, and you go deeper, and it requires some real character analysis and development in order to do that successfully, because you can't have lived all those lives, but you might have learned a thing or two about your own by doing so. Have there been moments during writing of these albums where you've learned things about yourself that you would never have learned if you'd been focused on that specific emotional feeling?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because when you watch a film or you read a book.
Taylor Swift turned heads on the red carpet at the Academy Awards in Los Angeles. Not just for her stunning appearance, but for the sweet way she spoke about her fiancé, Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs. During a brief interview, the 14-time Grammy winner, Taylor Swift, couldn't hide her happiness when talking about the NFL star she plans to marry. Wearing a sparkling, classic Hollywood-style evening gown, Swift captivated everyone as she walked the red carpet at one of the film industry's most prestigious events. Fans and reporters quickly gathered, chanting her name. As both a global music icon and a powerful figure in pop culture, Swift naturally drew enormous attention. The most heartwarming moment came when a reporter asked about Kelce. Swift's face lit up and she smiled brightly. "He's amazing," she said. "Travis has always been my biggest supporter. Whether it's music, work, or anything in life, he's always there." Her short but heartfelt comment quickly spread across social media, with fans around the world sharing the clip and celebrating the couple. The relationship between Swift and Kelce has been one of the most talked about romances in both entertainment and sports. The pairing of a global music superstar and a top NFL athlete has fascinated fans since the couple made their relationship public. Since then, they've been spotted together at major events, from Chiefs games to stops on Swift's international tours. Although Kelce did not walk the red carpet with Swift at this year's Oscars, she made it clear he was still very much part of her evening. When asked if he was watching the event, Swift laughed and replied, "I'm sure he was. Travis loves big events like this. He always says Hollywood and sports have more in common than people think." The comment drew laughter from those nearby and highlighted the couple's playful dynamic. According to sources close to them, Swift and Kelce are currently preparing for their upcoming wedding after getting engaged following a long period of dating. Friends and family have reportedly been very supportive of their plans. Swift also shared how Kelce helps her stay grounded despite their demanding careers. "Our jobs are both very stressful," she explained. "But Travis always reminds me that the most important thing is to enjoy the moment and appreciate the people you love." When reporters asked whether Kelce was helping with the wedding planning, Swift laughed again. "Oh, he has a lot of ideas," she joked. "Some of them are very interesting, and some are very Travis-esque." The playful remark drew more laughter and showed Swift's well-known sense of humor. Her presence at the Oscars also reflects her expanding influence beyond music. In addition to her work as a singer and songwriter, Swift has increasingly become involved in film and media production, making her a welcome guest at major events in the film industry. Still, throughout the night, it was clear that talking about Kelce brought her the most joy. Each time his name came up, her smile seemed to grow even brighter. Fans quickly shared clips of the interview online, filling comment sections with excitement and congratulations. One fan wrote, "The way Taylor talks about Travis is so sweet." Another added, "You can tell she's truly happy."